2024. The time is 2 p.m. In attendance are Commissioners Matari, Brooks is on the line, and Commissioner Duncan. And if you would join me for a moment of silence, please. All right, and Mr. Gray, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Changes to the agenda.
I think we're just going to pull 21, right?
Correct. Yep, and we'll handle it next week. And public comment. Okay, hearing none, I would take a motion for meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes, items 1 through 16.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar, items 17 through 19.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Payables.
I move that we approve payables for November 18 through 22, 2024, in the amount of $547,214.39 and jury panel payments in the amount of $3,428.20.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And 21 will be handled next week. Item 22, County Department Annual Report. This is the FY24 Federal Equitable Sharing Agreement and Certification with the Department of Justice and our KCSO. Ms. Drobny, please.
Hello, Stephanie Drobny for the record. This is just our annual ESAC report that we have to submit to show any revenue or expenses that have come out of the asset forfeiture account. And so everything that we have bought has been approved through the DOJ already. And so we'll just submit this audit and then for compliance.
All right, questions, motion?
I move that we approve the County Department Annual Report FY24 Federal Equitable Sharing Agreement and Certification with the Department of Justice and the KCSO.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, item 23, this is a contract for hazard fuel hand treatment for Farragut Trail FireSmart grant in the amount of $9,450 with Inland Northwest Land Management, LLC, Party of Williams, and our Office of Emergency Management. Ms. Littlefield, please.
Yes, Andrea Littlefield for the record. Kootenai County Office of Emergency Management requests that the Board of County Commissioners approve the contract between Kootenai County and INW Land Management in the amount of $9,450. And this is for 7 acres of hazard fuel hand treatment for the Walking Horse Project in the Farragut Trail FireSmart grant area.
All right, questions, motion?
I move that we approve the contract for hazard fuel hand treatment for Farragut Trail FireSmart grant in the amount of $9,450 with Inland Northwest Land Management, LLC, Williams, Office of Emergency Management.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Item 24, board approval request, and this is pursuant to policy 930, November General Election Services invoice payment and sole source declaration. This is with K&H Integrated Print Solutions in the amount of $107,341.89 in our elections. Mr. Gray, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Asa Gray for the record. Before you today is a request to pay K&H Integrated Print Solutions the amount that you just read into the record, the $107,000 and change, for services performed for the November 5th general election this year. In conversations that myself and Clerk Locke have had with Mr. Ferguson over the course of presenting this, there should be a memorandum included in your packet listing out the reasons for the sole source. He had said in email to us that those reasons should be read into the record today. So I don't know if you'd like me to read this memorandum.
I think just the section that applies, or do you want the whole memorandum?
My concern is that there's no resolution.
So we've used them for years, and so we can have a resolution brought back next week.
Okay.
But I think we definitely need to pay the invoice, get that ready. So, yes, I'm not sure why Dave didn't do a resolution.
The the reasons set forth in here. I'm sorry, Jamila Holmes, Civil Deputy Prosecutor for the record. The reasons that Clerk Locke set forth in here go toward the sole source, not toward the actual satisfaction of the purchase order.
Okay.
And so I don't think it's necessary for you to read into the record for the purpose of purchase order debt. However, I would urge the board to adopt a resolution to satisfy the sole source requirement.
Okay. But would you recommend we just read the couple of reasons why into the record today?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. Okay, so we'll bring it back for resolution next week, but we can still approve the invoice. So with that, questions, motion.
I move that we approve the request pursuant to Policy 930 to pay the November General Election Services invoice with K&H Integrated Print Solutions in the amount of $107,341.89 with elections.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, thank you. Item 25, consent to assignment of lease AAL 2003-070 to Edward Lowry from Edward Lowry, Benjamin Rodriguez, and Bruce T. Campbell with the airport. Ms. Stevenson, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Stevenson for the record. Mr. Lowry has purchased full interest in the hangar from the gentleman Benjamin Rodriguez and Bruce Campbell, and for AAL 2003-070, we are just following suit with the land lease as well as the personal property.
All right, questions, motion?
I move that we approve the consent to assignment of lease AAL-2003-070 to Edward Lowry from Edward Lowry, Benjamin Rodriguez, and Bruce Campbell at the airport.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Item 26, this is a grant amendment, number 3-16-0010-056-2022, and this is an amendment for the FAA in the amount of $871,057.58, and it's cash match from Fund 30 in the amount of $48,392.08, and that's the 5% portion. And Ms. Stevenson.
Kim Stevenson again for the record. This grant and the following item on the agenda are both part of the SRE building. We had a total of 4 grants for that building. The 2 listed here had very specific. They were just with the process of the building itself. So what we've had to do, because we were slightly over on one, slightly under on the other, we worked with our district office, and they have agreed to accept the grant amendments listed here. So there's no additional funding that we're getting. We're just reallocating the square footage of the building so that both of them will come under the original grant dollars awarded. So that's why we're asking for the amendment to be approved.
All right, questions, motion.
I move that we approve grant amendment number 3-16-0010-056-2022 with the Federal Aviation Administration in the amount of $871,057.58 with a cash match from Fund 30 in the amount of $48,392.08, which is 5% with the airport.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Item 27, Grant Amendment 3-16-00010-060-2023. And again, an amendment with the FAA in the amount of $391,648.35. Cash match. I don't know why I cannot say match today. Cash match, Fund 30, $21,758.24, and that's a 5% match with the airport. Ms. Stevenson.
Kim Stevenson again for the record. Just reiterating everything that I said for item number 26 applies to item number 27, adjusting the square footage of the building allocation between the two grants. Just for additional information, AIP 56 went from 5,745 square feet to 5,706 square feet covered under that grant, and then AIP 60 went from 2,527 square feet to 2,566 square feet. Again, just adjusting the allocation between the grants.
All right, questions, motion?
I move that we approve grant amendment number 3-16-0010-060-2023 with the Federal Aviation Administration in the amount of $391,648.35 with a cash match from Fund 30 in the amount of $21,758.24, which is 5% with the airport.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Item 28, board approval request, and this is for the Coeur d'Alene Airport Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program update. And Ms. Stevenson.
Kim Stevenson again for the record. Commissioners, we had originally presented this in April of 2024, and that was approved, assigning myself as the DBE, Disadvantaged Business Liaison. And our representative at the FAA, because of the Reauthorization Act of 2024, has requested an update, including language that is associated with the Reauthorization Act of 2024 as opposed to 2018, which is what it was based on before. And so we have taken the information that we received from the FAA and integrated that up into the policy statement, and we are just asking for reapproval of that program.
Okay, questions, motion?
I move that we approve the request for the Coeur d'Alene Airport Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program update with the airport.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, item 29, do you want to handle 29 and 30 together or just keep them separate?
Separate.
Okay. Item 29, County Department Annual Report. This is the juvenile probation yearly counting or yearly statistics with our Director, Brian Alexander.
Thank you, Commissioners. Brian Alexander for the record. I apologize, Commissioner Brooks. I did bring some hard copies of 2023 so you guys could compare this year to last year. Overall, our numbers are down for the most part, which is an interesting to see. As we know, diversion numbers are going way up, so it's interesting to see our numbers on the decline. But some of the biggest areas that we noticed is status offenses filed by the court. In 23 we had 42. This year we had in 24 19. And that's important because that's been a big push for our department and then statewide to address status offenses, which are those, now what's left is truancy and runaway, MIP, tobacco, alcohol, and curfew have all been changed to infractions. So those don't come to our department anymore, but to address those other status offenses, which are only committed by a juvenile because of their age, we've been trying to eliminate those and eliminate any detention for those. So that's kind of important to see that huge drop. So that is attributed to assessment center diversion and having those alternate resources for those offenders. But overall, the age of our kids are still staying the same with the big push between age 14 and 16. And then some of the other numbers you'll see, new charges after release from probation at 6, 12, and 24 months were, the first 6 months were about down half. So we're seeing a nice steady pace where those kids are not reoffending once they get off probation. So the numbers look good, even though they are down. We're starting to see some positive on that. One of the areas of concern are commitments for juveniles doubled this year from 5 last year to 10 this year. And part of that is Washington and Spokane. We're seeing a huge increase of juveniles who have extensive criminal history over there and not being held accountable through our counterparts, and it's kind of spilling over. So we're seeing that our courts and with us are handling that through commitments or holding them accountable in the state of Idaho. So we're seeing kind of that increase in that commitment area. Let's see, and then restitution collected, we collected 25,524 this year, where last year we're up almost 60,000. So that's a huge drop in that revenue collection there. And then part of that, those numbers being down, is the community service alternative through our work in lieu of detention program. So we had 75 juveniles participate in community service or WILD this year, where last year it was 47, and last year they completed 734 hours, or this year they completed 1,304 hours of community service.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm just curious, one time you presented numbers to us and the felony count went down, and that was largely, even though the misdemeanor and other offenses went up, is that because of a reduction in charges, or so I just want to see, are we moving in the right direction in a good way, or are we moving in the right direction because things are kind of being massaged?
I think we're still in that massage area where they're originally being charged as felonies, and then as it progresses through the system, I think for ease of resolution, a lot of those are being kind of changed down to misdemeanors just for resolution. But I think there's some that, too, that we just, our law enforcement, it's hard to get them to be, I don't want to use aggressive, that's probably not the right word, but when it comes to juveniles are a lot easier to deal with in law enforcement. I know laws have changed with how they deal adult offenders and what has to be witnessed in their presence to arrest. And in the juvenile world, that hasn't happened. So they are a lot easier to address, but I think law enforcement is still afraid to address juvenile issues. So we're trying to get out there more with our law enforcement counterparts to put their mind at ease of what they can and can't do with that, and kind of how we work, how the system works to help benefit them on the street. I know December 4th we have a big meeting with the sheriff's office with all their command staff and sergeants in reference to juveniles, online stuff, and then hopefully reiterate some of that. But on the felony to misdemeanor, we're still seeing some of that massage to hold in a lot of those.
And just one other question, and I'm sorry if I might be catching you a little off guard here, but if you could wave a magic wand, what would be the one or two things that you'd like to see done that could really make an improvement on the juvenile side?
You and I have had this conversation, and I know Commissioner Duncan and I talked about this before, is our judges. We have 9 magistrates that run 1 week on in the juvenile world, and you get 9 personalities, and when the state went to 1 judge, 1 family, they have to stay with that judge. So in an 8 or 9 week rotation, it kind of puts out their next court date if they have a violation. So we don't have those immediate sanctions for juveniles anymore. And unfortunately, that's what they need. So probation violations could be, anywhere from 6 to 9 weeks out before they get in front of a judge. And the max, the way the legislation has us for any unscheduled time, is we can only do a max of 3 days at one time. And for some of these kids that have been in detention, they don't care. That's not a distraction or just,
It's like a sleepover at a
discourage
friend's
them
house.
from-
Doesn't discourage them.
Right. So if I had a magic wand, I think if we can go to, 2 or 3 minimum juvenile judge system would, I think, increase how fast they're being seen and hold them accountable and have that, immediate sanction, I think would have more of an impact, because we're seeing could be up to a year and a half before they're through the whole process and get to probation. For whatever reason, there's stuff that goes on. So after a year and a half, you kind of lose the parents and you lose the kid in that holding them accountable because they've already moved past it. So it's kind of like dragging it on.
So swiftness.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Bill, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the County Department Annual Report with Juvenile Probation and the Board of County Commissioners.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Thank you. All right, item 30. This is our County Department Annual Report, and this is the financial part of juvenile probation, and it's with our Auditor's Office. And Ms. Gidney, please.
Hi, Errol Gidney for the record. Today in your packet is an annual report submitted to the state by Juvenile Corrections. This report that we're talking about right now is something that the Auditor's Office fills out as it's a financial summary. This just needs board's approval and the chair's signature. Do you guys have any questions?
Questions?
No questions.
All right, motion.
I move that we approve the County Department Annual Report with Juvenile Probation and the Auditor's Office.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, item 31. This is board approval request, and it's reallocation of ARPA funds from administrative costs to the Justice Building with our Auditor's Office. Ms. Falcon, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandy Falcon for the record. This memo has been brought before you as a result of direction from the board at the last status update meeting that I was at. This is just requesting board approval to reallocate the remaining $470,683 of ARPA funds that are currently assigned for administrative costs to reallocate them to the Justice Building project, since there are no administrative costs remaining. This would ensure that the remaining ARPA funds do not go to waste and are properly allocated by the Treasury's December 31st, 2024 deadline.
All right.
And this has been reviewed by Pat Braden.
All right, questions, motion?
I move that we approve the request to reallocate the ARPA funds from administrative costs to the Justice Building with the Auditor's Department.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, item 32, Resolution 2024-87, and this is the fiscal year 24 capital carryforwards with our Auditor's Office and Ms. Gidney again.
Hi, Errol Gidney for the record again today. I just have a resolution before you to move forward the unfinished projects in FY24 into FY25. The total amount of these unfinished projects is $14.9 million and will be pulled from fund balance. Do you all have any questions?
Questions?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 2024-87, FY24 capital carryforwards with the Auditor's Office.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, public comment. Anybody on the line? Nope. Okay, 2:25, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.